We are so honored to have you join us for this episode of Beyond the Loss. I'm Aditi Leverage, and I am a bereaved parent to two and parent to one living child. I'm a specialized pregnancy and infant loss coach, mindfulness meditation teacher, and founder of the registered charity, the Pregnancy and Infant Loss Support Center.
And I'm Danyelle bereaved parent to my daughter Emelina and parent to two living daughters. Co-founder and director of operations of the Pregnancy and Infant Loss Support Center. On this show, we share real stories about parenting and healing through pregnancy and infant loss. We allow space for the often silenced truths around loss to be heard. We offer an affirmative space for all people impacted by loss to share their stories, their triumphs, and their healing.
Please keep in mind that the stories shared are personal stories and are not to be used in replacement of professional advice. Should you need additional support, please visit our website in the show notes that are linked.
We are so excited to have you join us for today's episode. Let's start talking.
Welcome back to Beyond the Loss. Thanks for joining us today. So Danyelle and I, Danyelle and I only today. We don't have a guest, and we thought we'd take this opportunity to talk about something that we're seeing more and more over the last year of the pandemic and throughout our grief and loss journey, and in particular the last little bit on social media and stuff, and that is toxic positivity. This was Danielle's idea for a topic, and I was like, this is a great one. I think that this is so important to talk about because, as I mentioned, we're seeing it so much, and I don't think that people fully understand what it is and how it shows up, and then kind of how we can combat it. So Danyelle, do you want to share with us what you believe toxic positivity is?
I would love to. So you pinpointed something just in this introduction, Aditi, when you said how it shows up for us. Toxic positivity, is a term that I didn't even know a year ago. I'll be completely honest. I had no idea what this was, but I do know that it made me feel like I was never achieving what I was supposed to be achieving. So when I take this back to toxic positivity, to me is really when we're doing things that have little benefit to us. So when I was in my deep, deep grief about 3 years ago, I stumbled across an influencer who talked a lot about gratitude and creating a gratitude journal. And I was like, great, I need more gratitude in my life. I'm going to do this. And what was neglected to be told of me when I started doing that gratitude that wasn't working was you have to dig deeper than just being grateful for my house or grateful for my husband or grateful for my kids. I could write that every day, but I wasn't believing it. And I think for myself, it really was toxic because I was doing what this influencer who said, like, if you do this, you're going to feel more grateful, you're going to do this, and you're going to feel better, and blah, blah, blah. And I was doing that. But for me, I wasn't getting better and I wasn't feeling better. And instead, what I was feeling was that I was not adequate enough. So when I think of toxic positivity, I think of it's not looking at the deeper reason or like the underground stuff. It's just looking at the surface stuff. And the surface stuff is what everybody thought I was great, but it was like that underneath stuff that wasn't being hit. So when I say I was doing a gratitude journal saying I was grateful for my house, great. I was grateful for my house. I really am. I always am grateful for my home. But why? But the reason why for me is what I needed to kind of stick to and kind of look at. Because when I was just looking at grateful for my house, well, I can tell you all the things I'm not grateful for in my house. And, no garage, no this, no that. I could go into that. I had to figure out why I was grateful for this space that I lived in. Was it safe? Was it quiet? Was it warm? Did I, what was that why?
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like that is the thing. I fully believe in gratitude, right? You know me, Danielle. I
Yeah.
fully believe in gratitude. However, like even when I work with clients, I really am specific about if we're doing a gratitude journal or a gratitude practice, it needs to be the smaller things in life, right? We're all grateful for the bigger things in life, but when we're only showing our gratitude to those greater things in life, we're actually losing sight of the little things. And let's be honest, the little things are what we need to seek, right? Especially like a good example of what you said is health, right? Both you and I live with chronic pain, chronic illness. And a lot of the times when I would be in a big flare with my chronic illness, my mom is, and if she listens to this, sorry, mom, I love you, but my mom is a constant toxic positivity type of person, and no fault of her own, that's just sort of what she's been taught herself, right?
Yeah.
So she will always say, well, at least you're in good health. Like, be grateful for your health, right? Like, it could be worse, right? And yeah, it absolutely could be worse. But what all that does is take away how I'm actually feeling in that moment, which in that moment, I am struggling hardcore. Like, I can't get out of bed, I can't function, and I can't be like, oh, I'm grateful for my health. Because in that moment, I'm not grateful for my health. And all that does is highlight when we are talking about gratitude and we say I'm grateful for my health and I'm not, all it does is highlight how ungrateful I actually feel, right? Which then becomes toxic because then I get into a spiral.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not about this fake it till you make it, right? It's about actually finding gratitude for the things that you really feel grateful for. So what I mean by that is, like, a lot of times people will say, well, I'm grateful for my job. And of course, during COVID-19, absolutely any one of us who has a job and is getting a paycheck is extremely grateful for that. However, I like to say we need to break it down into the specifics. What about that job are you grateful for? Right? For me, honestly, there's so many things in this work that I'm grateful for. But on that day where I'm having a bad health day, I am so grateful that this job allows me flexibility and allows me to honor where I'm at with my health. That feels more realistic to me than just saying I'm grateful for my job.
Yeah. Because I always felt like when I was saying I'm grateful for my job, I always went to all the reasons I wasn't grateful for my job.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when we started thinking about like the whys and okay, let's not just like gross over that we're grateful for our jobs, because COVID-19, we are very grateful for our paychecks. However, there are times in the last year where I have been very frustrated with our work, and it's not the work we do. It's for me, it's either the long nights where there's meetings really late, or there's really early meetings, or I'm juggling meetings while I'm driving to pick up my child from childcare. And the fact that I get to do all of this makes me so happy, and I am so grateful. However, I have to remember to dig further into that so that when I'm at that point where I'm like, I'm going to pull my hair out, I'm like, you know what? I'm doing this because look at what we've been able to accomplish. Or for myself, it is, look at your dream is coming true. It is okay to be frustrated. It is okay to feel this way. Maybe that's, for me, that's usually a sign that I have not taken enough time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, if I'm starting to get frustrated with my work, it is time to turn off the computer. It is time to turn off my phone and take an hour to do something that I need. So sometimes that's a workout. Sometimes that's a shower. Sometimes that is just to sit in bed and watch some really bad reality TV. And always within that hour, I'm like, yes, I am so grateful that I got to do this and that I can turn off my computer for an hour and focus on me. And guess what? Now I'm ready. And that's probably the night I work the longest, because all of a sudden I'm re-energized and re-pumped up for it. But if you had told me 3 years ago that, you know what, you should just be grateful for your job and you should just continue to do it. And you wrote your gratitude journal, so you're going to be good. It wasn't good.
Yeah, and I find that when we say toxic, the reason why it's toxic is because when we say be grateful for your job, it's dismissive. It doesn't allow, it's like what you and I have talked about before, Danielle, of the word but, right? Tell the listeners what you've said about the word but.
Well, I said it today, but I usually, quote, sit on my butt. So when we put a but behind something, we're dismissing the first thought. So for example, if I say to Aditi, I need to take a break, but I'm going to get to my work later. So I've just dismissed the fact that I need to take a break. So instead, what I say is, Aditi, I need to take a break. I pause, and then I'll either start a new sentence, or I might say, however, I'm going to get to my work later. So I am giving myself the permission to take that break, and I'm well aware that I'm going to get back to that work, because Aditi knows I'm not going to, flake out on my job.
No.
So why do I need to tell her I need a break and then I'm going to do this? Because I've just dismissed for her and me that I need that break. So I like to quote, as my parenting class taught me, to sit on my butts and to really focus on, if you're going to use but in a sentence, why are you using but? And a lot of times it's because we're going to dismiss our first feeling.
Yes, exactly that. And so when we're saying but, and a lot of people do this, right? Like you just said, I'm so grateful for my job, but I'm frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes toxic because we're dismissing the frustration, and the frustration is real. Like, let's be real, in all of our lives right now. Yes, we're extremely grateful for many things, and we're frustrated, right? And we hear this a lot with like faith over fear, right? And I say this to my pregnant after loss clients all the time. No, it's not faith over fear. It's about faith and fear. You're going to feel fearful, and you're going to need to work hard to find those pockets of spaces where faith does live. But one does not negate the other. Both can and will exist together. And I think that's when that toxic positivity becomes toxic, is when it's dismissive. And I find like that gratitude journaling, using that but, I'm grateful but, or you're grateful for your health, like you're feeling unwell, but you're in good health, right? You're having a tough day, but you're okay, right? That becomes when it's really dismissive and becomes really toxic.
And we hear it a lot, in the bereavement world, where it's like, you should be happy because, for example, I had a living child when my daughter Emily passed away. So I should be happy that I had a living child, although I was still grieving my daughter that had passed, and I'm still grieving her. But I should be happy because I had these children. No, I don't have to be happy. I can be grateful for my children. I can love all my children, deceased or living. There's no but to it. I don't have to show up as a happy person every day. If today is the day I need to be in bed because it's just that day, let's just let me be in bed. Instead of saying, oh, look at you, you powered up, you're so strong, you got out of bed, you went to work. There were so many days where I got up and went to work and I was not showing up not the best self, not my worst self. I just wasn't showing up. I was just that body that was doing what I needed to do. Nobody ever said to me, it's healthy for you just to stay in bed every once in a while. It's healthy for you to say, enough is enough. I'm turning my phone off and I'm going to go sit on my deck. Because we live in a society where the busier we are, the better off we are. Well, as a grieving mother, I needed less busy, less pressure, and more, it's okay to be you. It's okay you're not getting out of bed. After 10 days of me not getting out of bed, or 5 days of me not getting out of bed, maybe we need to look at it for some further options. But one day, it's okay for me to stay in bed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you said, that you can be grateful for your living children and grieving. Right? You can be grateful and grieving. Both can coexist. And we recently ran our helpline training last week, and I was speaking about this. There's an author, some of you might have heard of her, but others might not have. Her name is Pema Chodron, and she is She used to be like a nun, and now she's a Buddhist monk. And anyway, she writes these books about like spiritual help books. She's really profound. And in one of her books, she says that what makes us human is our capacity to feel more than one emotion at the same time. That's literally what our superpower is as humans, is that we can feel grateful and we can feel grief, sometimes within the span of a couple of seconds, right off the bat, like behind each other. And so she says that that's what makes us human. And so to deny that, to try to say to ourselves that we should only feel grateful or only feel happy or only feel whatever, that is denying what it means to be human. And I always keep that with me because I think that's at the baseline of toxic positivity. That's what it is. It's stay positive, stay grateful only, with not the and, right? We can be grateful and we can be grieving. We can be grateful and we can be frustrated. We can be all of these things. That's literally what makes us human. And if we are denying that, we are literally denying our human experience, which then, of course, is going to become toxic because we're going against what it means to show up in this life as humans. It goes against what living is.
And what I find is that it carries on. Like, it's toxic positivity, you may not realize right now. But in my experience, at a certain point, you go, I'm not better and I should be better. Because all these books I've read on gratitude and on grieving and how if you're in a really bad depressive state, you need to exercise and you need to do X, Y, Z. It doesn't, like, long term, it's not a solution because we're putting all that emotion and all that feeling aside. And we're getting the endorphins from the exercise, or we're getting the quote gratitude from this journal. We aren't dealing with those human emotions that you were just talking about. I myself, it took me until 3 years ago to really start dealing with those human emotions. Everything I read prior or looked at prior to 3 years ago was putting me in a space where it was very toxic. It was, be grateful for your children. You should work out. You should do this. Oh, well, you just had a baby and you have postpartum. Exercise is a great way to avoid, is to combat that postpartum. Exercise is important, 100%, but it's not going to solve the postpartum. It's not going to solve the grief. It's going to give you a different view. It's going to give you a strong body. But for me, it didn't help me mentally because I still wasn't dealing with those human emotions that needed to be dealt with.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is when I see clients, I'll talk about toxic positivity. And oftentimes what people don't realize is we are feeding ourselves the toxic positivity messages. That's when I feel like it becomes even more toxic. And what I mean by that is oftentimes I will have sessions with my clients and my clients will be talking about what they do, right? Like, so I'll say, okay, so the grief hits and what do you do? Well, I remind myself that it could be worse, right? Or I go and I look at my living child and I feel, and I remember that, like, at least I have a living child. And if we look at Brene Brown's empathy video, she talks about the word at least, right? How it's not empathetic. And we do this to ourselves, right? Because I think the messaging out there has become so strong that we toxic positivity ourselves. And then we stay in this loop of like doing it to ourselves. Even if our family and friends are giving us the space to be okay with not being okay, we're not giving ourselves that permission. And I think that's what I would say. If we want to combat toxic positivity, we have to first identify and become aware when we're doing it to ourselves. And I mean, I've come a long way, as you know, Danyelle, in my own grief journey and my own grief recovery. But where I still struggle is my chronic illness. And you've reminded me of it, right? I'll still toxic positivity myself when it comes to my chronic health. And I'm learning, right? I'm becoming more aware of it when I do it. and I'm hearing that voice, and when I become aware of that voice that's telling me all of these toxic positivity messages, I try to combat that voice by reminding myself, like, it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be frustrated. And you actually get further along when there's that acknowledgement that two emotions can and will exist together.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, it is what we feed ourselves. We are, there's that famous quote that we're our worst enemy. We truly are, especially when it comes to toxic positivity. And as somebody who does deal with chronic illness and has been in bed for days on end because the pain is so unbearable that you can't even get up and my room is dark and I feel like I'm failing, I have to remember that if I rest today, I will be better one day. And whether that one day is tomorrow, whether that one day is a week from now, I will have a good day if I can rest. And for me, even when it comes to my grief, I have realized that if I can personally rest and give myself the space to be sad, be upset, or just be quiet, I will be much more successful in being more spiritual, more open, more willing to do anything. It's when I say to myself, at least you still have a house, or at least you have two girls, that I will just start spiraling, because then to me, the negative Danyelle comes out, and that negative Danyelle gets me absolutely nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think, yes, I think for me, the advice, if I can lend any, just from what I've been observing and from what I also in my personal life am doing to try to combat the toxic positivity culture that we're in, is to become aware when those thoughts are coming in internally, to ask yourself, how is that thought actually making me feel? Like, is doing this positive, quote unquote, positive phrase that I'm offering myself, is that actually making me feel lighter? Is it making me feel grounded? Is it making me feel centered? And if it's not, being honest about that and going, okay, so it's not working. So what else can I offer myself here? I think that's like a really good first step of combating that toxic positivity culture that all of us are going into. We see this so much with COVID-19 right now, right? I mean, be grateful that you're healthy. Yes, of course, all of us who are healthy are grateful for that. However, it does not negate the fact that it has been 13 months of living like this, and that is frustrating, right? So we have to be able to understand, like Pima Chorlin said, this is the human experience, and we should never ever strive to only feel one way. Ideally, we want to find the balance in both, honoring the frustration, honoring the grief, honoring the sadness, honoring the anxiety, and leaning into those moments and pockets of spaces where faith, trust, gratefulness all authentically live. I think that's the difference too, is it has to feel authentic. If it's not feeling authentic, it's likely toxic.
Yeah. And if it's not authentic, it's time to stop it and find something else.
Yes.
Because
yes.
That's what we do at the center. You're never going to find toxic positivity at the center
from our practitioners.
From our practitioners. Because our practitioners fully lean into that human emotion. And it is our mission that that human emotion be something that is common, not something that we're afraid of.
Yes. And I want to share this quote that I posted on my Instagram a while back, but I really think it really resonates for this conversation and might be a good place to end. But it says that it's from someone whose name is Corey Muscara, I think is the last name. Anyways, it says, I don't believe our world needs more positivity. I believe our world needs minds that are equipped to be with the complexity of life, minds that can hold nuance and polarity, minds that can stay grounded, centered, and open to the full range of what it means to be human. And I think that's exactly what we do at the center as practitioners, and the space that we hold at the center is exactly that. We are never going to be 100% grateful, 100% faithful, 100% trusting. And we need to allow ourselves to find practices that ground us and center us so that we can feel the full range of what it means to be human.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So thank you everyone for listening. If you are practicing some toxic positivity, which I'm sure you are because we all are, this isn't an episode to make you feel bad. It's about saying, hey, let's look at why we're doing it and if it's really helpful for you. And if it's not, what else can you do? And of course, if you've experienced loss and you're looking for a new way to engage with the polarity of the emotions through a loss journey, then we'd love for you to connect. Have a good rest of your day. And thanks, Danyelle, as always, for sharing your thoughts.
Thanks for having me.